Hey guys, welcome to another virtual release for us. This is a fun one for all you sweet drinkers out there. This is our 2019 vintage of our Vida Dulce. So, Fabian, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about a little bit about what you think about this wine initially, maybe some of the backbone details of La Vida. I'll jump in here and there. I'll go ahead and start opening this and pouring as we get in there. Guys, just a reminder, if you don't have your tasting sheet out, grab your tasting sheet, have it ready to fill this out. It's a fun way to taste at home with your group, so you can kind of check it all out and make your own notes as the wine, and we'll kind of use this as a guide as we walk through it. Also, too, at any given time, if you want to stop, pause, and catch up with what we're going over, feel free, absolutely, okay? So feel free to jump in and say, hey, we're going to pause for a second and do this. We know we're going to run a little faster, so pause this as much as possible. As you need it. And with that, Fabian, why don't you tell me a little bit and tell our friends at home what they think a little bit about our Vida Dulce.
So this wine is really interesting for me because it is going to be primarily late harvest Mourvedre. It does have a little bit of muscat in there as well and a little bit of Grenache. The muscat's really just to kind of boost the acidity a little bit, kind of showcases the fruit as well. But an interesting thing we just realized about this wine is it is also barrel aged, just kind of like Deviants. So the Mourvedre did sit in barrel for a little bit, and then we go and back sweeten it a little bit. But it's just a really nice sweet red, and we were tasting it earlier just to kind of refresh our memories. And it's we'll walk through it and give you all the details, and I won't get too much into it right now before we get into the tasting. But this wine, I don't know. It's honestly, I just realized it's one of my favorite wines for sure that we've put in the bottle of this within the past year. Definitely gonna start drinking a lot more of it. Definitely gonna make my mom drink a lot more of it because this is the type of stuff that my mom likes, where it's just kind of a sweet red with a little bit more structure in it, and we'll get into all those finer details. But that being said, let's go ahead and start with the visual aspect of it. So. Of course.
So guys, on the back of this thing, there's that space. You can flip it over, use that for reference. But all we're really doing is really trying to look at colors. So now keep in mind around the rim of the color, you'll see it. It might, if it's a little brown, it might mean it's a little older. That gives you a little bit, but overall, we're also looking through the wine itself. And one of the things that's going to tell you is, if you see something in there, maybe something floating around, you might know that might explain the filtration. If it's hazy, it might mean there's something wrong going on. You definitely don't want to see that in wines that you're trying. You don't want to see any haze. But for this, the color is just going to kind of tell you a little bit about it. Might give you a little indicator as far as body goes. So what would you call that color, Fabian? If you guys, and on your sheets, you're going to have reference as well. But I would say the intensity is definitely like a medium intensity, I would think.
It's light to medium.
Light to medium. Yeah, you can still see through the wine itself. It's not. The last one we did was Petite Syrah, and that was like you can't see through it. It looks
dark
like it looks like paint in the glass. And so this is, you're gonna see through it. It's gonna be a little lighter. So that to me, I'm thinking, well, this is probably lighter body, right? And I would say, kind of ruby color. What do you think?
Between ruby and garnet, you can kind of look at the edge of that right there at the top of the glass. And it is going to be just a tad garnet, and that's going to be just from the aging, So it did sit in barrel for a little bit, which is going to, turn that color a little bit more from ruby to the garnet. But it's still a nice color. It's not going to be like orange. It's just kind of right on that cusp of ruby and garnet, I think.
So now you've taken the second and you've visually inspected your glass of wine, and that's the first step. And you see Fabian and I both starting to cheat a little bit here, but you can give it a swirl, right? And that swirl is just going to add that oxygen in. And okay, so now you're sitting at home and you're like, I don't know how to swirl, okay? Let me give you a couple little pointers here. You can use your finger, so you can swirl on your finger if you want to use that as a guide. Remember those little birds you used to get as a kid? You can also do it on a table too. So that's the easy way as well if you want to swirl as a table. Or you can try to work on it with your hand. And we have a little extra wine in the glass, so make it a little harder to swirl, so you don't want to get too aggressive there, else you get wine all over your lap. But what are we doing with that swirl, Fabian? Why don't you explain what the point of that is? I mean, besides you're looking really cool when you're drinking wine, but what's the point of swirling your glass?
So right now we're trying to aerate it. This bottle of wine has been sitting there in the bottle for I don't know how many months now, but it's been just kind of cramped up. Imagine being the wine in that bottle and you're just sitting there cramped up in this tiny little space. And now you're getting poured into this glass and you want to stretch out and you want to open up. And so this is going to allow the the wine, one, this is served chilled, so it is going to allow it to kind of warm up a little bit just to room temperature, which is also going to help you smell and taste. And two, it's going to allow those flavors to kind of warm up and start to open up. And the alcohol is going to spread out and also carry some of those aromas out. So you'll swirl. Now, as far as a little bit of etiquette, I do like to say, you don't want to be one of those people in a tasting room who's just constantly swirling. Don't be swirling your glass just the entire time you're in a tasting room. Give it a good swirl, smell, taste, drink, and all that, open it up.
Now, if you think it hasn't opened up enough, and this is something like you're really not getting a lot of aromas, then that's a fine time to go ahead and agitate. Now, I will show you a trick. If you're having a really hard time smelling, or maybe you're a little stopped up that day, you can go ahead and trap the headspace of the wine, give a little extra swirl, and you can release that, and that will give you that initial burst. It's not necessarily every single aroma you want to pull from the glass,
Sure.
But if you go ahead and get your hand over something over it, will give you that additional little kind of aromatic burst, so you can smell something if you're just having a hard time smelling. And I tell you, certain wines for me, I have a hard time picking up aromas characteristics from, and so that's one thing I will do. Also, at different levels of your nose, which Fabian, you notice he just took a smell of his arm there to kind of refresh his palate and get ready, his nostrils, and get ready for that next kind of sniff to see if he smells something. For me personally, something that I'm going to do is smell it at different levels. So I'm going to get my nose down in there sometimes and really give it a smell. Sometimes I'm going to get it a little closer. And obviously there's a million ways to smell wine, but you're going to pick up different, for me at least, I get different aromas at different levels of where I am from the glass. So like sometimes like maybe I'm getting like really, really bright raspberry, but I get my nose deeper in there and I get more vanilla.
Sure.
And that's something that I like to do it helps me pick it up. Obviously, guys, like you don't have to sit there and smell wine for an hour and a half the way that we're doing right now, but it is a big part of what you smell, or in what you taste, is what you smell, right? So if you don't believe me, go ahead and close your nose and then try to drink something and tell me what you taste. So that is a key factor I do like to point out. But what do you smell, Fabian? What are you getting from this wine now that we've given it a chance to open up?
So an interesting thing is, like, from here, a little bit farther away, I get more of the cherry. Almost kind of like what are those chocolate-covered cherry candies?
Oh, like the mirrors, the goodness, but yes. Okay.
Yeah, the chocolate-covered cherries that are kind of like almost have a little bit of alcohol. So from a distance, it's kind of like a cherry and chocolate, a little vanilla, of course. And then when I get further in there, it shows more of like the oaky characteristic, more of the vanilla for sure. And definitely more of the alcohol once you're like right in there as well. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Yeah, I get a lot of vanilla, and then I'm getting this like kind of back end like little spice to it. Like I'm smelling some little spice coming through. The varietal itself is Mourvedre, and it's late harvest, right? So that late harvest, we let it sit on the vine longer. So it does dry a little more, builds that sugar content a little more in the grape itself. And sometimes I've noticed, I get more of those herbaceous notes from late harvest vintages. I think it's just because it has more time in the field, it has more time in the vineyard. So it's picking up more from its atmosphere out there. And I do notice that a little bit. So it's a little herbaceous, I think. For me, it's vanilla and spicy.
It's
and a little
spicy,
herbal.
and a lot of people think Mourvedre is from Puerto Rico, but it's not, And so it's just like a spicy grape kind of type thing, But yeah, the spice is kind of interesting because it's almost like herbaceous and black pepper in there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's nice.
It is, absolutely.
Good on the nose for sure.
No, it's wonderful. So now, guys, it's the time. Take that first sip. Now, keep in mind, the first sip is essentially mouthwash. You want to get it all around your mouth, and you'll see Fabian, he's going to purse his lips a little bit. He's going to kind of swish it around. But don't judge the wine based off that, okay? So all he's doing is just cleansing his palate, getting it ready to go, because we don't know what you just had. You might have had lunch. You might have had orange juice. You might have brushed your teeth.
Yeah.
Don't let that be the impression on the wine, okay? So get that first sip, move it all the way around, go ahead and swirl it around and get it all across your mouth. And then from there, let's see what you get on that second taste. That's the one that's important. So what are you tasting, Fabian?
I mean, the dominant thing is cherry, for sure, to me. A lot of cherry, and it's honestly the best example I've seen in a long time in a wine for cherry. So that's like my main thing. Definitely a little vanilla, and I'll just leave it at the flavors for now.
That's and you know, one of the things I think Fabian said, which is key and crucial, is for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all taste different things.
Okay.
So like, this is not the point in time where you are yelling at the person across the table, being like, "You don't taste coconut."
Yeah.
This is what you taste, guys. So it's all about you, and there's no wrong answer to any part of this. Okay. I understand that when you're trying wine with somebody and they're like, "Oh, I try this," maybe you do taste it, maybe you don't. For me, vanilla jumped out like crazy, so I got a lot of vanilla. But now that Fabian says that, like, yeah, and I definitely see cherry coming through. So that's definitely something that I think would be a big flavor component of this. And what sort of cherry? Like cherries, you know, where are you going with that?
More of a maraschino cherry.
Okay.
Definitely not just like a farmer's market cherry or anything like that. It's definitely something that's been like soaked in something very rich, very sweet. Again, it reminds me of those like chocolate covered cherries. And I like those to a certain extent, but this is just like the perfect level. Because I know with those ones, there is a little bit more of an alcohol flavor, and this is just like mellow and nice and, cherry, vanilla. A little bit of the vanilla definitely from the oak. I can identify it as oak. And it's like a nice little, not necessarily a char, but just like a medium toasted barrel probably is what I would guess. So.
Yeah, and I, it's interesting, and Sue brought the point up earlier, but you do get a lot of the barrel characteristics here that I notice. And for me, in sweet wines, you don't pick up a lot of barrel all the time. So I think that that's something that is fun to point out. In our deviants, because that is a barrel-aged sweet, but this is also some barrel-aged red in here too. I do get barrel characteristic coming through, and I often find that to be muted. In sweets, I find it that the fruit components show out more than the barrel, the kind of what you get from a barrel taste profile. So I think that that's kind of exciting to have something that does show so much barrel in a sweet, and it shows it nicely and delicately.
Absolutely.
And then talk to me about finish. So, Fabian, what is finish?
So the finish is, like after you swallow your drink, you kind of wait a second, and then it kind of like how it tastes on your palate afterwards, like that kind of breath that comes up afterwards. So on the finish, it's a little hot. I'm sensitive to alcohol. I know that. So I know that like if I am ever tasting alcohol, like as long as it doesn't taste bad, then I'm okay with it. But I can definitely perceive it.
And anyone that's ever seen you dancing to a Ricky Martin song, knows that you're sensitive to alcohol.
I mean, it depends on the type. If it's tequila, we'll see. But that being said, it's gonna be. The finish is really nice. I think it does allow you to kind of like the alcohol, you breathe it out and you kind of get a little second taste of the vanilla and a little bit of the cherry again. And then, it's just nice and smooth. I think it's really well balanced. I don't think it's like too sweet. I don't think it's too dry, too tannic, or anything like that. And we did kind of skip over like the body tannin, acid, and sweetness. So I don't know if you want to go over that.
We did, and I apologize for that. And that's something that I did kind of jump past there, but. Guys, body is something that, for us now at this point in time. And I guess for me, I'm usually talking finish and then working backwards. But
sure.
I think, for me, body is, so for you guys at home, like what is body, right? Well, it's the weight of the wine on your tongue. So for me and body, I think we're light to medium here. Like I don't think it's super full body, but I'd say it's light to medium body would be the descriptor for me. Where do you have it?
I had it more medium to full.
Okay.
Just because I am judging it as a sweet wine though. So for a sweet wine, I think it is a little bit more on the heavier side compared to some of our other sweets. And
that's a valid point. He's judging it in the category it's in. He's not judging it in the category across all spectrums. And when you're judging wine, you should keep it in the category it's in, right?
As far as a sweet red, like there's more tannin in this than there is for most.
There is. I think it's a little fuller body, a little more tannic than this sweet red. So I would say that too. I would say I see more medium tannin. They're balanced in, so if you don't like tannin, don't let it scare you guys. But think coffee with cream, not coffee by itself, tannin level. Okay? Sure. You still see them there. I feel them there on my tongue. And then acidity, where do you say your acidity is?
I said low to medium. It doesn't really bite my tongue. It's got that nice kind of creamy vanilla flavor to it. So it's like really mellow. It doesn't really bite much.
I agree with you there 100%. And then sweetness, I would say, what do you think? Semi-sweet? Would you say this is sweet?
I'd say semi-sweet.
Yeah, and so that's one thing, like for us from a winemaking standpoint, from the chemistry, it's more in the sweet category. However, what we say on the back of the bottle is not necessarily always what you're going to taste and always what you're going to taste in your palate at home, right? So, like, yeah, I think semi-sweet to sweet for me. But I could say people that drink no sweet at all would think this is very sweet, right?
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
So that's also another thing there to don't want to hang you up. And then fruit. Are you thinking it's young fruit, ripe fruit, overripe? Where did you come to fruit?
Between ripe and overripe, because it's kind of bright but also jammy.
Yeah. Well, it's just in even the cherry components you described are not fresh cherry, right?
Exactly.
It's like that more like
Processed
chocolate cherry, or it's that
Chocolate,
maraschino that's been soaking in alcohol. It's like that more preserved cherry. So you are getting more of that like jam and prune characteristics, not like pruny dry red, but you're getting more into those jammy and jelly kind of characteristics there. So then, so finish coming all the way back in. It finishes now that you've had, take another sip, guys, but how's it feel when you have no more liquid in your mouth? That's the finish. That's tasty. It's nice. I mean, I personally think sweets sometimes can become a little syrupy for me on the finish. And I also think that when they're sweet, sometimes the finish can be lacking. It can be like big fruit up front and no finish, but I think it has a nice finish. I think it's a long finish for me. It's not abrupt, and I guess what I mean by that is the fact that like it's not like I drink it and I'm lacking. I think it's very satiating and it's there. So I appreciate that about it. Any other notes you have on the finish?
It lingers, It's like right now, I took a sip, 20 seconds ago, 30 seconds ago, and it's still kind of lingering. I still taste the cherry and the vanilla, and I still can feel the tannin on my tongue. And it's just like a pleasant sweetness, It's like I don't drink a lot of sweets, but I do enjoy deviance, and I'm realizing now that I really enjoy this go around of La Vida. It's like it turned out really well. I'm pretty happy with it for sure.
So that takes us right into overall impression. Your overall impression as a winemaker, your overall impression of the wine itself. What do you think?
Happy with it. I could not be happier with it, honestly, because it's just sweet wines are harder to make than white wines, honestly, sometimes. And this one I think turned out really well, and I think it's just a good balanced wine. So overall impression, I think I would have another glass of this. I'm gonna have another glass of this after we're done with this. I'm gonna have a couple of glasses probably tonight. So I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I like it. La Vida Dulce is something. The sweet life, the translation there, right? Is something that we put out years ago. I think our first vintage in La Vida was 2013 or 14. So this has been a vintage for something we've been playing around with for a while. Is that late harvest Mourvedre? I personally I love it. It's my favorite vintage I think that we've had in the bottle of La Vida. I think by far.
Absolutely.
My favorite vintage of this wine, and that's that. I don't say that a lot.
Sure.
It's hard for me to say that. I think it's an overall impression. I think as a primarily dry drinker, I think this is something I could definitely appreciate. I think this is something I could drink with a room full of sweet drinkers and be happy with. It's something that I want another glass of this here in a second. So that's one thing that's important to me, and it should be important to you at home, guys. So if you're like, whoa, a lot of this is way over my head. At the end of the day, it's about, do you like the wine and do you want to drink more of it? And how often do you want to drink it? And hopefully, for our standpoint, that's a lot, and you love it, and you want it in there. But I'm really happy with it. I think, hats off to the vineyard and your team and winemaking across the board as to what we put in the bottle here. And I look forward for you guys trying it. Jump in there and order more. This is going to sell quickly. I think we're looking at something that's going to move way faster than prior vintages, guys. So, pro tip, buy now. It's not going to stay around very long in the tasting room. But cheers on that. I think it's delicious. If you are scoring at home, make sure you add up all your stars and your categories and go back in and rescore it and have fun and check it out later too. Like that's another thing that I always recommend for you guys is make sure you jump in and you try these wines over time and score them again and check out the different flavor profiles. It's cool how it changes over time for people.
Oh yeah. Bottle shock's a real thing.
It is.
This has only got bottled I think a month ago, if that.
No, and it's showing beautifully. And one final note, and this is such a overdone thing, but it's something we don't do a lot of, is talk pairing. Where would you pair this? Okay, so what would you pair it with, and what would you do while drinking this wine? Those are my two favorite pairings. It's not only what you would eat, but what you would also do while drinking it.
This wine just really makes me want to dance in the rain. That's the thing.
Dancing in the rain.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Dancing in the rain.
Okay. Yeah, what about you?
You know, I would say, for me personally, I think this is something that I want middle of the afternoon, Angle, New Mexico, leaving the vineyard for a day, working with the fruit all day, because I've been eating fruit.
Sure.
So I'm already having pretty sweet grapes all day. I think this is a perfect fit for me going in there. And then what sort of food? What would be your meal choice?
Oh, you know, I think I could pair this with a lot of different things, because this is one of those wines that's just, it is a little sweet and it's a little tannic, so I would be okay with having this with a steak, because I like to sometimes pair my steak with more of the sides, which is always going to be a salad, right? And so for the people who are having a steak that don't necessarily like cab or petit verdot, then they're going to, I would say, try something like this, because the tannin structure of this is going to complement the steak, but the sweetness is going to be refreshing with the salad.
I definitely like the pairing.
What would you think?
You know, I think this is a spicy food pairing for me. I think, you know, pozole or some spicy chili. I think something there with some
like menudo.
Menudo would be perfect.
Like menudo would be really.
You know, because I like sweet and spicy together. It's a nice contrast. So that's something I would definitely go for. Play around with it, guys. You know, because that's the fun thing about pairings, all right? They're not meant to like, oh my gosh, I love Vida Dulce, but I can't have it with chicken because they didn't say that. It's not what it's about. Like, play around with it. Those are a couple I think would work really nicely. We'll have to check that out and see. That being said, guys, stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in for this one. We will have another virtual release for you very soon. If you're sweet or dry, it doesn't matter. This is your time to have fun. Sometimes your household is split. Try them both together. Let us know if you have questions or comments, and we look forward to drinking La Vida with you guys here at Ruidoso soon, or in any of our locations. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.